You're welcome back. Well, let's get right into the front pages as we have Mr. Dayo Akintobi joining us today. Mr. Akintobi, good morning. Welcome to the program.
A very good morning to you. Good morning to Nigeria. It's a alignment of three different elements: a new day, new week, new month.
New month.
Wow. How's that for a new beginning?
We really hope we'll have like cherry news, something that marks the new beginnings. But the Nigerian Tribune leads with Oyo abduction, and it's probably something you know already, but let's show you how the front pages are interpreting what played out over the weekend. Oyo abduction, Tinubu approves recruitment of 1,000 forest guards, deploys special rescue team. Now that's according to the Chief of Staff, the NSA, IGP, Defense Minister, others who visited the community after over 2 weeks. NUT declares strike in Oyo, holds solidarity rallies today. Makinde cautions against protests, says public demonstrations could embolden kidnappers. It's a page 3 read, and you can see images from the visit of a federal government delegation to Oyo State yesterday. So another video came through, the principal yet again making another video saying that some people try to rescue them, military try to rescue them, and that has now angered the abductors, the terrorists, saying that, you know what, don't come for us again, negotiate with them. And it's funny how this is being played now. It's a very tricky one, Mr. Akintobi, but how do you interpret all of the things we saw over the weekend and your expectations for this week?
Well, it was quite heart-rending to see the husband of the principal of that school, the lady who released the most recent video, and he addressed a gathering where Governor Seyi Makinde was and got quite emotional in appealing to the government to leave no stone unturned to free his wife and all the other people who are currently in captivity. Now, I looked at the whole incident that occurred over the weekend, from the president sending this high-powered delegation to the pledge of initiating 1,000 forest guards for Oyo State, and everything else that happened, including even Governor Seyi Makinde's statement. Now, what just occurred to me in looking at the whole thing in retrospect is that this is just another fire brigade approach to resolving this issue. We're being reactive again, as always, and we're acting after, a calamity has occurred. And I think more focus should be paid to prevention. And so I'm looking to the president, and I listened to Jeff's very impassioned opening at the beginning of this segment, and I kind of concur with quite a lot of what he had to say in terms of the fact that at this point we should have a comprehensive national security plan in place that aims to secure the whole country, and not one that just reacts in the aftermath of an incident. I mean, you look at things and you ask yourself that all the land in this country belongs to the government. Even where you built your house, you're just leasing the land from the government. So how can the owner of the land not know who is occupying his land at any given time? Who that person is, what his name is, what he does, where he works, where he actually lives, pinpoint. And you look at things like our borders that are under the purview of the government. Government does not know who is going, who is coming. We don't have ID. We have this thing called a name, but we can't identify who is going through our borders and who is coming out of it. The borders are porous. And you now initiate 1,000 forest guards after the terrorists have left. Because I don't believe that the people abducted in Oyo State are still in Oyo State after almost 3 weeks. That the terrorists have found ways through the forest to move them far away. And so putting 1,000 forest guards in Oyo today is medicine after death. It's still good to see that we're doing something. But, the genie has escaped from that bottle already, and you can't put it back in. Those 1,000 forest guards should have been there before this incident happened and not after.
Because there were signs before now.
Absolutely.
The old national park was attacked.
Yes.
Security operatives were killed.
Yes.
We've seen a build-up
Yes.
of this. There was an attack in Crane as well.
Yes.
There was kidnapping. So it's not
Yes.
as though this just happened.
No, it's not unexpected.
It's been building up from the start of the year, in fact, since last year.
Precisely. That's all the more reason why it's unconscionable that we don't have an advanced plan, that we are reacting after the fact, and we've not heeded those signs and taken defensive measures. Governance should not just be about removing subsidy, collecting taxes, scattering the opposition. As Jeff said, governance, the very first step of any responsible government is to protect the lives of its citizens, lives and property. And so far, we're not seeing that happen. So it's difficult. You know me, I'm a proponent of thank God it's Monday. I'm always happy that it's a new beginning. But it's difficult to see a bright line on the horizon. You know, it's difficult to begin to hope for a better tomorrow based on what happened yesterday, and we're not seeing any concerted effort to really make a difference. I worry about this fire brigade approach of addressing issues after they've happened. I mean, yes, by the time you start seeing the IGP, the whole Inspector General of Police, having to go to the scene of the crime, it means that
after 2 weeks.
After 2 weeks. It doesn't connote a sense of seriousness on my part, and also for the IGP to have to get up and go there, I think he's playing to the gallery, because I don't think his presence there makes any difference to the fight against terrorism at all.
I just have a theory that for all of that delegation should show up. This is just my theory, call it conspiracy, whatever, that for them to show up, something good may happen pretty soon. Because I'm wondering why they had to wait for 2 weeks to show up for an event that happened 2 weeks ago.
Well, Governor Makinde said in his speech that there are things he can't tell us that are happening on the national security perspective.
Of course,
so perhaps there's some behind the scenes. They've said kinetic approach, non-kinetic approach. So definitely some things are going on. At one point, they said they've actually been in touch with the abductors. Then we didn't hear anything else again. So clearly there are some behind-the-scenes maneuverings going on, and perhaps that's what precipitated the visit of the delegation.
What we are talking about is the fact that, you know, it's called positional leadership for a reason, human empathy. This is a climb, this is the only, let me not say only, one of the climbs in the world where a disaster can literally collapse an area, and then the leadership don't show up with many and plenty excuses, you know. So after 2 weeks, of course, it's not everything that should be discussed on TV. It can never happen, because it may compromise, complicate, and even worsen the situation. The most important thing is to get those women, those children, and all of them out as soon as possible. That's what we're all waiting for. But before we leave the Tribune newspaper, let's talk some other stories here that has to do with revenue generation, where at the bottom, so NNPCL, I think that was the name. I don't know why we're still calling them NNPC. NNPCL generates 5 trillion revenue as crude oil output hits 1.68 million barrels per day. That's a page 5 rate, of course. But the 1.68 means that it's a combination of condensate and crude. Crude itself, I think we did about 1.4, so we're still slightly below the upper quarter. What do you make of it?
Well, it's good that, the crisis in Iran with the U.S. and Israel has kind of given us a nice break in terms of oil prices. I think the benchmark in the 2026 budget is about $65 or thereabouts, and now you're seeing prices hovering around 100, slightly above, slightly below. So that's a windfall. I remember the last time during the Iraq war, when we had a similar windfall, and you know, we didn't really see much benefit from that windfall. So we are hoping that this time the additional funds that are accruing to the government will serve us well. Perhaps they have an excess crude account or somewhere where they put the money and earmark it for special purposes.
We've been looking for that account for a while.
So it doesn't just evaporate into the ozone layer, you know. But truth be told, it's a golden opportunity. Although it has its upside and its downside. The downside has been that we've paid the price at the pump in terms of the fact that, yes, on the one hand, escalating oil prices means more money to the coffers of the government. But with the downstream sector deregulated now, it means that when oil prices go up, the price at the pump goes up. But as cherry news, Dangote actually cut the price of the gantry price by 50 naira over the weekend. So perhaps, knock on wood, we'll begin to see a downward adjustment at the pump in the coming days.
Because the crude has gone down below $100
Yes.
now. I think it's roving around 90 something.
Yes.
I think it went down to as low as maybe 89 or so. So it's depending on the body language
Yes.
of what's playing out between Donald Trump and his friends in
Yes.
Iran and Israel and all of that.
Yes, and that's the beauty of capitalism is that prices rise and fall based on, adjustments in circumstances.
Yeah.
It's not controlled. It's market forces that determine. So
Free market.
if Donald Trump's body language with Iran says that ceasefire will be extended for another 60 days or whatever the case may be, that reduces oil prices. The market will react to that, and you will ultimately see that the price at the pump should come down. But Nigeria is not, things don't work according to the norm.
You know, when it comes to the dynamics of this dollar crude, sometimes it benefits the government, at other times it benefits the citizen.
Yeah.
What we should be looking at now is to see how the Naira can further strengthen, because the highest cost component of petroleum products is actually crude, and crude is priced in dollars. The reason why PMS, jet fuel, or diesel, or any of the petroleum product we buy right here is that expensive in Nigeria is because of our exchange rate. If our exchange rate was around maybe 500, it would be cheaper. So because it's the exchange rate that is the problem here. Yeah. So if it comes down, it will benefit those of us who buy at the pump, but government selling crude, it will not benefit them in Naira terms. So it's a dilemma sometimes.
But if we are pulling our own oil out of our own ground and we are refining it in our own refineries, why can't it be priced in Naira according to our own benchmarks? Why, if everything is local,
an international commodity, what we can do is
localizing it completely. Look,
you can buy in Naira, but you can buy in Naira of the dollar equivalents.
Why does it have to be dollar benchmarked if everything is local?
Makes a valid point.
Why?
I'm not disputing. What you're saying is that since the crude is here,
yes,
what you need to realize also is the fact that NNPC doesn't even have the capacity to take that crude out of the ground. That's why we're doing a PSC.
Yes.
And these are guys are international people.
Yes, but the portion of the oil that accrues to us.
We should now...
If everything about it is
okay, we should subsidize that one.
The production.
Okay, under DCSO section 109 of the PIA. I don't want to argue that.
All right.
We made the argument a long time ago.
I hear you.
Let's go to the Vanguard newspaper. Yes. Vanguard is leading with education, medical tourism, drive foreign travel spendings to $6 billion. That's a page 11 read on the Vanguard. It says education-related travel gobs $2.84 billion. Foreign airlines dominates travel tickets. It highlights systemic failures, experts. I think it just tells the entire story.
Absolutely.
What do you have to say?
We have a great appetite for everything foreign, from, not just even the things we consume in the country, but even education, health, and look at the airlines. Anyway, I'm happy that at least Air Peace is doing a lot of international travel now, so that it's not just all the foreign airlines that are getting all of that money. I mean, but bottom line is, as long as services are not commensurate, products and services are not commensurate with what we can acquire abroad, and we have the means, it would be foolhardy for anyone to commit their well-being and destiny to a system that can't deliver. So if you've got the means, you will seek it elsewhere. And that's what's happening, and it's capital flight. You were just talking a minute ago about the value of the Naira. How will the value of the Naira ever increase if we have an appetite for everything foreign, from what we eat, to who treats our ailments, to who educates us? Yes, even as far back as in the 40s and 50s, in the time of our parents, they used to go abroad for education, but by and large they would have been well grounded here in Nigeria first, and would go for specialization overseas, and would come back immediately to their fatherland to come and serve and develop the country. We were not seeking foreign education then because it was better. We were just looking for specialization. In fact, I put it to you that in the 60s, the king of Saudi used to come to UCH in Ibadan for treatment. Saudi Arabian royalty.
Saudi Arabia.
Yes, in the 60s. Go and as one of our famous people say, fact check me. Yes, Saudi Arabia used to come to UCH in Ibadan for treatment. And look at how in one generation or two, things have gone completely full circle to where we are the ones who now go away to seek medical intervention. So I can understand what that story is saying in the Vanguard, that we will continue to be economically insufficient as long as we continue to look outwards. For a long time, I've advocated closing Nigeria's borders for a decade and let us sink or swim with all of our own internal processes. And by the time we open those borders after a decade, Nigeria will come out stronger, better, more economically viable, more competitive on the global stage, because we've got everything it takes. But I think it's the absence or failure of leadership that's left us where we are today.
Reminds me of an infamous song in your state that you cure madness with madness. I'm sure you know that song.
Yes, I do.
Well, it's a good thing that we're able to laugh this morning. It's been difficult getting laughter to come through from the soul amid everything that we're going through.
Yes.
And of course, Abuja Inquirer, focuses on that story again, which is our next stop for newspaper review this morning. 16 days after school's abduction, FG delegation visits Oyo. Tinubu approves 1,000 forest guards, deploys special rescue team to Oyo. And you also see above that, Wike plans month-long projects commissioning in Abuja. It appears that life just goes on, really. And I wonder how the education system is being affected in Oyo right now. The pupils and students in primary and secondary schools nationwide are supposed to be preparing for the third term examination, I believe. I wonder how the general sense of insecurity is affecting education. But let's go atop the nameplate on the front page of the Abuja Inquirer. Why Abuja is on top 10 Ebola high-risk list. And you find the story on the inside pages, page 2. It continues on page 2, to be precise. We have it here that the Abuja has been placed on Nigeria's Ebola watch list after the Nigeria Center for Disease Control classified the Federal Capital Territory, amongst other states, as high risk. And we did see senior officials meet over the weekend and speak on plans that are being activated to ensure that the spread is checked from the borders and from the airports at least. But what are your thoughts on this approach to defending Nigeria against a possible entry of Ebola?
Lagos and Abuja are the two busiest entry points into Nigeria. And the way Ebola is, it doesn't exist naturally in our environment. It has to be imported. And right now, there are 2 or 3 countries, DRC and 1 or 2 others, that are suffering from this epidemic at the moment. So the only way it can get into Nigeria is if somebody brings it in from outside. So the border has got to be the first line of defense. And so Lagos and Abuja entry points are being fortified to where they're even talking now about screening passengers. If you're coming in from any of those suspect countries, they're even talking about self-isolation, quarantine, because it has a gestation period. You can look like you're all right and come through the border and your symptoms show up a few days later. So there's a period of self-isolation that is being recommended from anyone coming from high-risk countries. And we have port health at the airports that are supposed to ask you all the right questions when you're boarding a plane or perhaps even a ship to come to Nigeria. When you get to the border, there is a form you're supposed to fill that interrogates where you've been in the last 2-3 weeks. And if you pass through any of these high-risk places, then a set of procedures kick in. The problem is this, and I experienced it during COVID, is that there is no really rigid procedural enforcement of the investigative process. You can ask you on the form, have you been to this country in the last? You say no. That's the end of the story. They take your word as gospel. But suppose I had been through those countries, but I'm too busy to want to self-isolate. So I lie. And I say no. Nobody actually confirms through my passport, through my, NIN, my, a travel database to see where I'm truly coming from. And, there are those who will always try and beat the system. And so it's another porous, exercise that opens to the possibility of things slipping through. So it's the grace of God.
The scrutiny put in place.
That's what I'm saying. The scrutiny is inadequate.
And what do we now say about the possible entry from land borders, those especially not manned by Port Health and the regular border scrutiny, informal borders, the informal borders now? Are you worried about that?
Absolutely. I talked about, when we were talking about insecurity, that our porous border is part of the problem. And it's not just, as we can see, it's not just insecurity now, but it's also the risk of importing a really dangerous, virulent disease. So there's formal and informal. Even the formal ones that are manned are helpless to stop, inflow, because we don't have a database of who's going and coming. Even though we have this national identity number, but there's no ID. You have your passport, but in situations of especially informal borders where there's no border control agency, how do you stop people from coming and going from our borders? It's quite challenging, but government is not powerless. When you look at the sheer heft of the government in terms of its ability to protect its citizens, not just from insurgency, but also from health risks as well. There's a lot more that government can do to restrict unwanted elements, whether human ones or biological ones or chemical ones. There's a lot more that government can do to protect
I'm wondering why, which is why I always talk about the value of human lives in Africa and in Nigeria.
Yes.
Do you know what the U.S. is trying to do in Kenya, and it's causing trouble in Kenya, even a court judgment?
Yes, it says everybody who
The
has
U.S.
Ebola
is saying that anybody who has Ebola that is a U.S. citizen will go to an isolation center in Kenya,
not in his own country.
Before maybe treated there before they are not going to take you straight to the United States.
No.
And in Kenya, some citizens are reacting and all of that. Yeah. That's country placing significant value on the lives of their citizens. They don't want you to bring it to their country first. Well, Kaide, you have the next one.
It's almost like Pennywise, pound fist in that sense. I mean, it's still your citizen anyway. Yeah. What if the citizen doesn't get the very best?
Yeah, but how about the Kenyan citizens that may be now exposed
affected eventually?
But that's why Kenyans are fighting.
Exactly.
And it speaks to how these issues are viewed. During COVID, China fought tooth and nail to ensure that COVID is not named Wuhan virus.
Yes.
But Ebola is named after a place in Africa. Lassa is named after a place in Africa. Who is fighting to say, no, let's give it a scientific name and not localize it to Africa. So every time you think about Ebola, you think Africa.
Yes.
Every time you think about Lassa, you think Africa. But every time you think COVID, you don't think
China.
You think global. But hey, it is what it is. Where are we headed next?
Okay, maybe you'll stay with the, which paper did you do? Okay, there's a paper.
New Telegraph has an interesting
No, this
story
Nigeria, this Nigeria. Let's go to this Nigeria. The president's people have taken over the whole pages on promises is delivered. But let's look at the top 105 Nigerians killed in South Africa in 7 years. That's page 5 read. This thing, it's difficult to convince me that government is not involved. I mean, the South African government or the politicians, let me use it that way, because the level of success of those guys who are literally embarrassing and assaulting people to using a loose there. 300 Ghanaians have actually been, taken back to Ghana because of this whole thing. And I'm sorry, but what looks like the selective foreigner title, that's why some people are not calling it xenophobia. They call it Afrophobia. Because I'm waiting for those guys who are marching in South Africa with greatest respect. I love South Africa. To go to Cape Town, Western Cape, where you have the Dutch, the French, the Germans, who are, I can almost guarantee they also have illegal immigrants as well coming into this. Let them go to Western Cape, not what is happening in Durban, KZN, or what is happening in Joburg, where you have a lot of other Africans. Until they go to places like Cape Town or Western Cape, then I will know they are serious. And they know the implication.
So essentially it's black people killing black people.
Exactly.
That's been a problem even in America. For the biggest crime on black people in America is done by black people. So we now see that extend into Africa. But, you know, the bottom line is this. Around the world, there's rising anti-immigrant fervor everywhere you look. You look at the UK tightening visa procedures, you look at the US, you look at Canada, anywhere you look, the global trend now is, if you're not one of us, we don't want you. I think it's more particularly focused in South Africa because that has spilled over into actual violence. In the other places, it's just still procedural. You know, they're still trying to use the law to either excommunicate or keep other people out or restrict others from coming in. They're still using the coercive apparatus of the law. But in South Africa, it's gone beyond that, where it's spilled into mano a mano and violence, you know. And I looked at the statistics, and even though they are basically targeting all non-South African Africans, Nigerians seem to be bearing the greater brunt. I think probably as a result of the numbers. I think Nigerians far and away are the largest contingent of Africans in South Africa. And so just from a statistical standpoint, the number of Nigerians victimized would be higher. But the one thing that still struck me most in this is that when the federal government said, those of you who want to come home, we will arrange for you to come home, the number of takers was infinitesimal compared to the number of those who signed up to be evacuated. So that tells a story right there, that either the risk is not as high as we anticipated to be or we speculated to be, or the cost-benefit analysis.
The shege at home is more than the shege.
I was trying to be euphemistic by saying cost-benefit analysis, but yeah, the shege over there is
less than the
shege here, so we'll bear it out over there. But, you know, it's not the best of situations, and I think Abike Dabiri and NIDCOM are doing things to try and address the situation. I think the fact that we've not had an ambassador there for a long time to engage with the South African government to do more to protect our people may have also had an impact.
You know, I'm just thinking about the irony of it all, you know, Africans against Africans. I watched a video over the weekend, is another round of xenophobia perpetrated against an African from Zambia.
Yes.
No, Zimbabwe, not, you know, from the western part of Africa that you would think, okay, the traditional hatred would have been expressed for, but someone else from southern Africa.
Yes.
And that kind of, you know, immigrant hate against immigrants is not expressed against those who have dominated them, you know, for years until they achieved freedom against the apartheid regime in South Africa. And so how do we then achieve Pan-Africanism that was, you know, advanced by our forefathers if this goes on? Kadi was talking earlier on about how the Chinese, you know, fought against that virus being named Wuhan virus, even though it came from Wuhan in China. I think it's something that, you know, Africans should think about.
I was actually quite upset when, before it even got named COVID, the first name it carried was the name of the primary school I went to, so I was not happy. No, don't call it that. Don't call it that. Yes.
Corona?
Absolutely.
I see.
Oh dear. Thank God for you, Mr. Kitobi. I wonder if we have time. There's a story on the front page of New Telegraph. Federal workers threaten nationwide strike over insecurity.
Oh no, NUT, you know, you're starting their strike today over insecurity and bring back the people in the forest. Now, for federal workers to be saying it as well, we're in a bad place security-wise, and it's not just federal workers, the whole country should rise up one way or another and let the government understand that enough is enough.
That's it, Mr. Daniel Kintobi. Thank you so much for coming through, as always, for helping us make sense of what the dailies are leading with. And thank God it's Monday, first day of June, and first week of the month. We'll take a break, and when we come back after this break, we'll be talking politics. From politics, we'll go to security and build from there. Stay with us.